All right. I think we're live here. Day 3 of the live chat series that I'm doing this week. Testing it on YouTube this time. The Twitter stream wasn't particularly great the last couple of days quality wise, so thought I'd make the jump over to here. Much needed. Hope everyone's staying safe out there with the quarantine still going on, and I'm going to talk some fights. So if anybody has any questions, feel free to throw them in the chat over to the side, or on Twitter. You can comment in the comments on Twitter as well. But nothing too new in terms of news. Obviously, the UFC 249 lineup got announced a couple days ago, which we talked about pretty in depth yesterday. Which is a great lineup from top to bottom. No complaints on my end in terms of the names that they have on there. But one of the more recent developments that we've had last night, the UFC, the news surfaced, New York Times confirming Jeff Sherwood's report that the UFC is planning on holding the event at Tachi Palace out in California on reservation land. So that's really interesting there. We'll have to see if that is where it actually takes place. Dana was on ESPN today, didn't seem to want to talk too much about it, didn't deny, did not confirm. He was pressed on it by Mike Greenberg, I believe, who was conducting the interview, and they weren't able to get any answers out of him, which you can read into it in one of two ways. You could say, hey, he doesn't want to say that, he doesn't want to admit it because that is where it's being held, or he doesn't want to deny it because he doesn't want people to dig any deeper into where it's actually going to be held. So interesting stuff there. I guess time will only tell, but it will be interesting to see if anybody, if it isn't in at the Tachi Palace, it will be interesting to see if anybody tries to step in and stop this thing, or if any amount of pressure will be put on the casino people to make sure this doesn't happen. So that will be interesting there. And until then, I guess we'll just have to wait. The lineup is set, and we'll see if we have any late additions or changes. I'm sure, like we talked about the last couple of days, logistics will be a problem for some of these fighters that are coming in here. But yeah, like I said, if anybody does have questions, feel free to throw them in the chat here. Again, kind of new to this whole thing. It's a venture for me. This week's been kind of a test for me just to see what I'll be dealing with if I'm doing more of these going forward. If you haven't noticed, Junkie, we're diving into the video interviews more so from home, trying to adjust from taking the on-site coverage that we usually provide and we're known for. And I think we have more boots on the ground than anyone, trying to take that and turn it into some more adaptable quarantine type coverage. So these live chats, I know Farah Hanoun and Mike Bonner doing one and MMA Junkies YouTube at I think 2 p.m. Eastern. So definitely check that out. I'm sure they'll be talking, maybe they have some insider stuff that they'll share with you guys, but they're both great. We have a What Up Nolan from Alaska. What's going on? Alaska, how are you doing? Giovanni. It's an interesting thing, live streams, that you can have people from all over the world, commenting, and I appreciate everybody that tunes into these and all the support. So if you guys like these, I'll continue to do them. But while we wait for some questions, maybe to build up in the stream here, just going to run through some other headlines. Most of them have been revolving around UFC 249. Like I said, the lineup got announced the other day. We also had some additions to UFC Lincoln, or formerly UFC Lincoln. We had Jan Kudalaba stepping in for Shamil Gamzatov against Ovince St. Preux. We have Marvin Vettori versus who's Marvin Vettori? Carl Roberson, I believe, is for that same card, unless I'm mistaken. That is for the Yep, that's for the April 25th card. So that will be on there as well. I'm hearing that the schedule, the UFC is trying to crank that out as soon as possible. I mean, it's kind of crazy to think that that we're going to see a lot of fight announcements coming up here in the next few days. I think the UFC's only booked, the next 2 events are filled. All the other ones have to adjust. They have to add, American fighters in place of the international fighters. And find some matchups there. I think we'll see a lot of the names that maybe got snubbed from the Columbus and the Portland and the London card who can fight in the United States we'll see a lot of them get inserted into the lineup, against new opponents or against each other. So that will be interesting there. I'm hoping to break some news coming up here next week with a bunch of fights for you guys. I think we'll be, for those of you that like fight announcements, we're in for it. Just checking Twitter. One of the major stories recently too, Cody Garbrandt kind of hinting at a potential move down to 125 pounds. I don't know if that's going to help him. He's had some problems with his chin in the past, and I'm not sure that a delve down to 125 pounds will be helpful for the former bantamweight champ. He seemed to think that a lot of the mistakes that he's been making that's led to those losses, he thinks that they've been from lack of discipline. So maybe he's right. Obviously, I would like to think that he knows himself better than anybody else, but the fact that he has been knocked out a few times now is kind of concerning when you look at that he's going to be cutting more weight. So not necessarily a huge proponent of that. What else we have going on here? Bellator's on hold, as you guys probably know. Looks like they won't be back till at least June. Haven't really heard anything much about what if they're looking into any alternative options, but it seems like they're going to be in line with all the other major sports organizations, besides the UFC, with not having events until this thing at least gets cleared up, or there's some safety precautions, or some more, some COVID-19 restrictions or testing in place. So we'll see what happens with them. Kind of stinks, obviously. I understand why there's why that these organizations are hesitant. I actually back them in being trying to have these restrictions in place, but there is a certain normalcy that comes with us watching sports that I hope to return to very shortly. Seems like, a lot of, if you check out MMA Junkie, obviously I'm one man and I give my opinion, but if you check out Junkie, we have a ton of interviews up there right now with a bunch of fighters who give a wide range of, takes on the coronavirus and fighting in this pandemic, training in this pandemic. Would they take a fight if they were offered it? And it seems like there's a real mixed reaction all over the board. I'm not sure if obviously these guys have different feelings behind the camera lens or behind the phone when they talk to us than they present. But it seems like a lot of them have been pretty honest. They've been, talking about the different challenges they faced in camp. I talked to Alexander Hernandez recently, talked to Aljamain Sterling recently. Both of them, Aljo said he wouldn't necessarily take a fight, or he definitely wouldn't take a fight unless it was a title fight because of the pandemic. And then also Hernandez kind of talked about the difficulties that he had during this camp. So check those out if you haven't seen them before. If we don't get any questions here pretty soon, I'll probably cut out. I just kind of wanted to give this YouTube thing a test to make sure that I'm, as simple as it is, make sure I'm not overly, I can be stupid at times. So, I might cut out early, guys. I appreciate everybody that did tune in, and expect more of these in the future. I probably won't be doing one again this week. I wanted to do it, like I said, a few trial runs and to make sure everything was running smoothly. So look for these in the future. They'll be more spread apart and not so clustered together. So you guys won't be oversaturated. But thanks for everybody that did tune in, and everybody stay safe.